And what is going on, everybody? Happy Monday, a new start to the week. And what a weekend it was in college football, both inside the conference and outside the conference. Probably the best weekend slate that we've had so far. And even the Friday game was crazy between Virginia and Florida State, and the Saturday slate from the 11 a.m. games all the way till 10 p.m. games at the Pac-12 after dark, what you want to call it. But yeah, it was a crazy weekend in the SEC. A lot of changes in the AP poll. We're going to get right into our top games in week number 5. Week 6 slate is kind of this week compared to week number 5, but we will still talk about it. But Wade, how was your weekend?
Yeah, like you said, action-packed, a lot of good college football, starting with that ACC showdown with Virginia and Florida State. I know we won't get to talk about that one here on SEC Talk, so we'll just go ahead and give it its glory. I mean, that was a very gutsy performance by Virginia, and really it was good to see kind of what college football used to be all about, and the fans storming the field and David taking down Goliath kind of thing. So I thought that was really cool. And then, like you said, Penn State, Oregon, a thriller. Georgia, Alabama, a thriller. We'll talk about that one here on the show. But yeah, a lot of shakeup for sure.
Yeah, I feel like the parody is just beginning in college football. So we're going to change things up a little bit. We usually start with the AP Top 25 poll, but Wade brought up a good point. It's probably better to just kick things off with what happened this past Saturday. So before we get into our games of the week, just a reminder, as always, here on the show, if you have any questions pertaining to your favorite team, it could be an SEC team. Honestly, we could just talk all things college football. So if you have any questions, comments, statements about your team, just feel free to leave us a comment, and we will get to that after the end of the show, after we finish our Hot Topic segment. So we're going to start off hot here with our first game of the week here. Number 4, LSU went on the road to number 13, Ole Miss. And this series, as of late, has been dominated by the home team, and that streak continues. This is now 6 straight years that the home team has won this series, and it was a defensive battle. Usually we see a high-scoring game. Last year went down to overtime. This year, went down to the fourth quarter, but it felt like Ole Miss was pretty much in control for the majority of this game. 24-19 was the final score, and we'll just go through the game pretty quickly here. So Ole Miss did get the ball first. They did go 3 and out, and LSU, after a couple of drives, was able to score on a fluky touchdown. Sage Ryan pretty much batted up like a pinball, and Nick Anderson caught it. They went up 7-0. And then right after that, Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss offense was able to drive down the field. 18-play drive that took up majority of the first quarter. They were able to get a field goal. And then the next drive after that, LSU's offense looks like they were going to score. And then Garrett Nussmeier threw a pick that was in double coverage. He did have Xavier Thomas, if you saw just watching the tape, open in the back of the end zone. But Garrett Nussmeier ended up missing that read. But after that interception, I feel like that's really when the game changed. Ole Miss's offense and Trinidad Chambliss, you saw him run the football more, and the LSU defense couldn't stop it. That's definitely been the story of this LSU defense for the past couple of seasons. But before you know it, Ole Miss was up 17-7 in the second half. LSU was able to bounce back, really shut down Ole Miss's offense at times. But it just felt like in the second half, LSU was able to get close, but it felt like Ole Miss in the second half, even in the first half, was in control in this one. LSU's run game, once again, did not get going. Only 57 total rushing yards against, people have been saying Ole Miss's rush defense have been one of the worst. Tulane had over 150. Georgia State even had over 150. Even a team like Arkansas put up almost 40 points on this Ole Miss defense. But yet again, LSU's offense is the main struggle in this one, as the Rebels now advance to undefeated. So, wait, what are the overall takeaways? I know that we're going to get to the LSU offensive struggles later in the show, but you got to be impressed with this Ole Miss team, because this was a really big win for them moving forward.
Yeah, a statement victory for Ole Miss. I think Lane Kiffin was really waiting for something like that. I know that they beat Alabama a few times in the mid-2000s, 2010s, but I think this is the first time that they've really had a game like this against LSU, maybe besides, what was it, Fournette's freshman year in 2015 when LSU got stomped. So yeah, this was a statement victory for Ole Miss. Didn't let LSU come in and bully them. The home team remains hot in this series. I mean, not much to say about this one. Like you said, LSU couldn't run the football. They were giving carries to a converted safety and kind of a gadget wide receiver. So that shows you that this team doesn't have much depth at running back. If Caden Durham's out for an extended period of time, that's concerning. And honestly, they're kind of thin at receiver. I think that we spent a lot of the offseason talking about how deep this team was at receiver, but when Aaron Anderson went down, again, it was a lot of gadget plays to Xavier Thomas, a few nice throws to Barion Brown, but where's the other Anderson? Where's Nick Anderson? I know he had the tipped ball for a touchdown. By the way, I don't think he caught that, but they gave it to us. I don't know. I mean, if a guy like Aaron Anderson goes out, certainly one of those new transfers has to step up and make some plays. But Nussmeier's got to get it there too. So just kind of a dud performance overall on offense. Defense, they looked gassed at times with the pace Ole Miss was playing with. But at the end of the day, they only let up 24 points. Could have been worse, yes. Wet Weeks did have a nice heads-up play right around the goal line, and yes, Ole Miss could have punched it in again and opted to kneel it out. So maybe this is more of like a 10-point game, but as it stands, it's an ugly loss, but LSU's not out of it. Like you said, there's a lot of parity, and it's kind of that NFL model where you can lose 2 or 3 games and still make it if you get hot late.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the LSU defense, it's hard to stop them when, you're on the field for the majority of the game. Your offense can't really move the football, have those time-consuming drives to give your defense a breath. Because the LSU defense, especially when it was getting to that near 17-7, that defense was really getting worn down. And what you're noticing about what defenses are starting to do against this LSU offense, they are, only bringing, they're only rushing 3, which they're still getting pressure of, which is definitely a concern for this offensive line moving forward. And they're just dropping back and just like, hey, you just go ahead and run the ball. And LSU is just not even attempting to run the football, because you saw Louisiana Tech, they were in the 3-3-5. The teams moving forward, like South Carolina, Vanderbilt, the next 2 games that LSU has, what do you think that their defenses are going to do? They're going to watch the film and be like, okay, we could just do that. Like, if you can beat us running the football, go for it. But we're going to force you for Gary Nussmeier to beat us. So far, Ole Miss, they must have been watching Louisiana Tech State. Florida did the same thing. Clemson even did the same thing too. So I think a lot of defenses that LSU faces moving forward are going to be starting to do that. But with this result, both of these teams will be heading on the bye, and then they'll be back into SEC action. Actually, Ole Miss will play Washington State. That's a weird non-conference game, but LSU will be back at home against South Carolina. South Carolina also another team on the bye. There's a lot of bye weeks. That's why there's not too many games in the SEC. But we will get to our next game. And this was a crazy one. And my gosh, I was very, very close of my upset pick for the week happening. But number 15, Tennessee, took down Mississippi State 41-34, an absolute offensive shootout. And if you want to hang with Tennessee, you're going to have to put up some points, because this Tennessee offense just continues to gel, especially with Joey Aguilar. Chris Brazzell once again had a big day. I mean, Mississippi State's defense really played well. I know they gave up 41 points. You could say the same thing about Tennessee. Both defenses, had their ways with both offenses. Blake Shapen had a couple of throws, but the Mississippi State rushing game was the story of this one. Over 200 yards gained against Tennessee, led by Fluff Bothwell once again. So that is a key transfer from South Alabama for the Bulldogs. And even in the loss, I think that Mississippi State should be ranked no matter what. Like, even with this loss, I think that Mississippi State has proven that they are a top 25 team. Obviously, the road ahead will be difficult. You got A&M this week on the road, and then after that, you got Texas, Georgia, teams like that. But I've really been impressed with this Mississippi State team. I mean, they were dead in the water, 2-10 last season. So far, they already picked up a big victory at home against Arizona State. They held. I know there's no moral victories in football, but if you're a Mississippi State fan, I think the future is definitely looking bright for you. But Tennessee's offense, they're going to be hard to beat every single week. It feels like you're going to have to play some defense and also bring your offense that day. So what a game it was in Starkville.
Yeah, I actually after the LSU game wrapped up, I switched over here
I did the same.
and was so entertained by it that I started the two big games late. And man, I was pulling for Mississippi State there at the end for sure. I mean, you just kind of want them to get that signature victory that they haven't had in so long, an SEC victory too. At that, but yeah, this team looks to be ahead of schedule to me. I mean, they're already at 4 wins.
Yep.
So I think there's definitely 2 winnable games on that schedule, and I think this team could, get to a bowl game, and that would be very impressive from where they were a year ago. And for Tennessee, I mean, they continue to look good. There's no shame in this. They moved the ball quite well as well, and Aguilar looked confident on the road as he got settled in. So I think this Tennessee team is right up there too. I mean, there's some defensive concerns, but we've seen teams turn it around as the season goes on in years past.
All right, absolutely. But nonetheless, a gritty win for the Vols on the road. Mississippi State, like I mentioned, will be heading on to their road trip against Texas A&M, which is always a crazy game once again. So that would definitely be another test for the Dogs. Let's go on to the next one. Speaking of Texas A&M, they got a big one against Auburn, 16-10 in a defensive slugfest. I know the score says 16-10, but if you look on paper, this game felt like it wasn't even close. I mean, Auburn's offensive line has been absolutely atrocious. Jackson Arnold, we saw him get sacked 10 times. Texas A&M's defensive front had their way against this Auburn offensive line. They got to Jackson Arnold. And Le'Veon Moss, it feels like we haven't really talked about him all season. It feels like the focus has been on Marcel Reed, but Le'Veon Moss had himself a game against Auburn's defense, which has been pretty good against the run lately. They were able to hold Oklahoma. But this Texas A&M team so far really feels different. I mean, they got a big victory on the road against a Notre Dame team that just beat the crap out of Arkansas. You could say whatever about Arkansas, but putting up 56 points against that defense definitely says something about them. But Texas A&M feels like a team, their schedule moving forward is very manageable. You do have some tough road trips coming up, mainly with LSU in the middle of October. But you got to really be impressed with Texas A&M, especially like it feels like in the past they like drop a game like this, but so far so good for Mike Elko's squad.
Yeah, I mean, they're winning in a lot of different ways. I mean, they showed that you can go on the road and put 40 on Notre Dame. And Marcel Reed can throw for 350 yards. Or they can win a game like this where the running back touches it 25 times and goes for $125. So I think that's a sign of a good team. And then defensively, I think they've been one of the more consistent units out there, except for the week I picked them in SEC Fantasy.
Yeah, well, that would be the week.
But any other week, they've been really good. For Auburn, I mean, I don't know. I think that this is the same team they were a year ago, unfortunately. I think that Jackson Arnold's just an expensive Peyton Thorne. And I think it's going to continue to plague them. It's the SEC. You got to have a guy that can, like Marcel Reed, when it counts, can step into the pocket and throw for 300 yards. Now, Marcel Reed's going to run the ball a lot, and he can do that. Arnold can run the ball, and we know he can do that, but we haven't seen him yet between Oklahoma and Auburn step up and throw for 300 yards. Like, that's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, I agree with you. This feels just like the same Auburn team from the Peyton Thorne days. The quarterback has definitely played them, and it might be the very reason why Hugh Freeze doesn't be the head coach for Auburn over the next couple of weeks. So they do have a bye, but a big one coming up at home against Georgia. We will get to them now, who is definitely going to be hungry to get a victory this weekend, and then they'll have Auburn next week. But number 17, Alabama, and number 5, Georgia, and Alabama just does it again against Georgia. Georgia at this point just can't beat Alabama, no matter who's on the field and no matter who's the head coach, whether it's Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban. Alabama 24, Georgia 21, and this is the reason why I was back and forth on this one, because the history set itself. It just feels like too many people wrote this Alabama team on just because of that week 1 loss against Florida State. Yes, they looked very poorly, but they showed over the past couple of weeks. I know it was Wisconsin, it was Louisiana Monroe. It just felt like an Alabama team that was finding themselves, especially Ty Simpson. I mean, I got to talk about Ty Simpson. What a game that he had. And, you got Jam Miller back in this one, and he was definitely a difference maker. You didn't really see too much of Ryan Williams, but the offense did enough. But the defense, like I mentioned, going back to week number 1, the defense got cooked against Tommy Castellanos and that offense. But it felt like Gunnar Stockton, in this Georgia offense didn't really have too many big plays. Now, there was definitely some missed opportunities for this Georgia team, going to, I believe it was the third, maybe fourth quarter. Gunnar Stockton threw a deep bomb, and the wide receiver dropped it. Would have been a walk-in
Both
touchdown.
teams, man.
Yeah, in Alabama. Ryan Williams, the first drive, had an easy touchdown. He dropped that, which cost him some points. So points are definitely left on the board. But my main problem, Kirby Smart, man. I know it was a 4th and 1, but take the points, man. The way that your defense was playing, you would have, locked it up at 24-24, and then you went up tempo, and you ran the ball with Gunnar Stockton, and we saw Nate Freezer early in this game. He had some big runs, but where the hell was he the rest of the game? So I don't really.
Why wasn't he in on that 4th down play if you're going to go for it?
Yeah, really. But big win for Alabama. This was definitely huge for them. They got a big test coming up against Vandy. So what are your overall takeaways? Definitely impressive Alabama, but I think moving forward, Georgia, they got away with one in Tennessee, and then they got away with one once again, almost against Alabama. But Alabama proved that they were the better team this Saturday.
Yeah, Alabama, they pretty much led this one from start to finish. I don't think they ever relinquished the lead. And Ty Simpson, man, he was on a heater coming into this game, and he continued it. He's, I think, still the nation's most accurate passer. So he's been a huge surprise. I wouldn't call it a surprise, but definitely a pleasant surprise for this team. He's been able to step in and honestly maybe grasp the offense better than Milroe did. Milroe was a special athlete, but you weren't going to get this kind of accuracy out of him. I think they've made a lot of strides since the Florida State game. And defensively, this team is, really talented and locked in at the moment. So just when you thought you could cut Alabama out of it, man, you just can't.
That's why I picked them in the preseason, win the conference. My conference title is still alive, as bad as week 1 looked. We'll see about Texas, though.
Absolutely, it's still alive because that Florida State game was out of conference, and you took down the predicted conference favorite. And here in Georgia, I know Texas is still out there, but Georgia, I don't know. They don't look to be their usual selves. I think they could have very easily lost to Tennessee. They lost here. Texas doesn't look too good. They get that game at home. So they're still in good shape, but they definitely are not above everybody. And I really think the league this year, anybody can beat anybody. Not Kentucky over Alabama or something, but the top dogs can all take on each other.
Yeah, it feels like there's like 5-6 teams right now that could just, win it all. So it feels like we know something one week and it changes every single week. So Alabama could win. Who knows? Vanderbilt could win. It could all just go down the drain here. But very big victory for Alabama on the road. Like you mentioned, Georgia, they could easily have been a 2-loss team right now. Tennessee controlled the majority of that game, and then Georgia, if a missed field goal, won it in overtime. So we'll see if Georgia can bounce back against Kentucky, and they will move forward with their SEC schedule. So that is all of our top games in the SEC. We had some other ones. South Carolina destroyed Kentucky. I think that we pretty much saw that coming outside of Elise. She believed in the Wildcats. But Notre Dame destroyed Arkansas, cost Sam Pittman's job. But outside of that, we had some cupcake games. Missouri took down UMass. We saw Ahmad Hardy do Ahmad Hardy things. At this point, he's just going to be a runaway for SEC Offensive Player of the Year. And honestly, maybe even Heisman discussion, depending on what he does in the big games.
Missouri keeps winning, man.
Yeah, Missouri is a sneaky team. I think that we eyed them in the preseason to be a team to watch out. They could potentially make the playoff. And so far, so good for Mizzou. And let's talk about those Week 5 pick'em results. Wade and Chet were at the top of the leaderboard in Week number 5 at 6-2 both. I'm sure you would like to take back that Arkansas pick. That was over when the game kicked off. And then myself went 5-3, and our first guest picker in first place at the moment at 5-3. We'll get some more guest
Not
pickers.
too shabby.
Yeah, not too shabby at all. First appearance on the show, gets 5-3. We will take that every single week. But like I mentioned, we'll have more guest pickers. Obviously not this week because let's be honest with you, there's not too many games to pick. But in the coming weeks, we will get more guest pickers on, and we'll track that leaderboard throughout the season. But now let's shift gears to our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, a lot of things have changed. You saw LSU was the top SEC team. Now it is flipped. Ole Miss is now number 4, moving up from number 13 to number 4. So they are the big movers in the conference. Number 5, Oklahoma. Even on the bye week, though, it comes at some cost. John Mateer had to have surgery, so he's going to be out for the next couple of weeks, including that Texas game coming up in Dallas. But still a top 5 team. Then number 6, Texas A&M with the win over Auburn. They moved up a couple of spots, so they are in the top 6. Rounding out the top 10 is Texas at number 9. They were on the bye, so really no movement for the Longhorns. Alabama after their big victory on the road in Athens inside the top 10. So 5 teams in the top 10 from the SEC. So that is definitely nice to hear. Number 12, Georgia. They moved down a couple of spots after the loss to Alabama. LSU moves down 9 spots after falling to Ole Miss and Oxford. Tennessee and Vandy, still pretty much the same. Tennessee didn't really move too much after surviving in overtime in Starkville. Vandy, after dismantling Utah State at home, undefeated now. They are number 16. They will definitely get their biggest test of the season moving up. And like we just mentioned, Missouri at number 19. So what are your overall takeaways? Any surprises to you that you see of our SEC teams here in this poll?
I mean, it's a little shocking to see Oklahoma and Texas A&M at 5 and 6. But I think it makes sense. I mean, they haven't done anything to not be there. It's just weird seeing those logos ahead of the next row.
Yeah, really.
Honestly, the whole top row. But I like rewarding Ole Miss for the big win. I mean, them and LSU swapped. I think that's fair. Alabama, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter at this point, but I think they should be a little bit higher. And look at Vanderbilt all the way up at number 16 and Missouri at 19. Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate. I mean, like you said, Mississippi State was very close to being ranked.
I think they should be ranked regardless.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep it up, they'll find their way in there. And South Carolina has a chance to get back in there as well, coming off the bye if they can beat LSU. So for now, I think it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did look. Mississippi State is receiving votes, so if they do go on the road to A&M and beat the Aggies, we could definitely see another SEC team in here. So we'll see. You know, the slate doesn't look good, but that's the week that a lot of chaos happens. So we will see what happens in week number 6. So speaking of week number 6, we will get to that shortly. But we're going to continue here week number 5 here as we do have our SEC Fantasy Week 5 results. And there has definitely been a trend to this. I've won whenever my fantasy team has lost. So maybe I should just let you win SEC Fantasy the whole season because last week my real fantasy team won. And then this week, which we'll get to here. But Wade, go through your team's results. I'm sure you're going to be discrediting that Vandy defense for letting up not only almost 400 yards of offense to a Utah State, but 35 points. So take it away with how your team did overall. Definitely a lot of disappointments that I'm seeing on the screen.
Yeah, really nothing positive here. Unfortunately, Texas A&M got into a defensive slugfest against Auburn. Marcel Reed did his job, and he got him the victory, but not the day I was expecting out of him. Just 184 yards. And Nate Frazier, like you said, I mean, he was involved early, but they kind of went to a running back by committee approach late. And whoever number 33 is, I should have picked him because he was the hot hand when it mattered. And I think that they just kind of stuck with that hot hand approach. So odd man out there, just 30 yards. Ryan Williams, I mean, he was a drop away from that number being like 120. He had a 60-yard touchdown drop through his hands. He had another one that was about a 20-yarder across the middle, and he took a huge hit. So, what could have been? And then the Vanderbilt defense, oh man, I mean, come on. They were winning this game like 44-15, and I was like, all right, we're good. Like, it's gonna be fine. And then I look up and the final was like 55-35, and I was like, well, this
Yeah.
can't be good. And there you go.
Nope, not good at all. There was a note to this, Wade. Marcel Reed was over 200 yards until negative 23 rushing yards. I had to add in there because we do the total yards. But yeah,
And I
Nate
think
Frazier.
he ran it out of bounds to end the game, or ran it. Didn't he like slide out of down to end the game, or was that something?
I believe so. Believe that's where
So he probably lost most of it on that stupid play.
Yeah, so unfortunately for you, another week in the negatives. But I mean, that was Vandy's defense most of the time. Whenever your quarterback doesn't provide more than 200 yards, it is going to be a rough week. So negative 136. We'll see if you can get back-to-back wins.
Man, I ran a whole football field backwards and then some.
Yeah, pretty much. But let's go on now to my team to see if they can take that vaunted negative. You could pretty much see that they did. The North Sellers, I mean, it was not that great of a game for them, to be honest with you. I mean, they were able to run the ball pretty effectively. I mean, this game was over as well. I mean, Kentucky is just a very bad football team. But the North Sellers got back on track after a couple of rough weeks for South Carolina, 234 total yards. Actually, most of that came on the ground. He had 84 and only like 160 passing yards. So if it wasn't for the total yardage, actually, you would have had the better quarterback this week. Lily Norris saved the day with his rushing ability. Mike Washington Jr., even with the blowout, 69 yards, I will definitely take that. And I picked the wrong A&M wide receiver. I just if I take KC Concepcion, he was the leading receiver for the Aggies. It's been Mario Craver. Of course, that would just be whenever I picked them this week, but 34 yards, I'll take it. And then Missouri's defense against UMass. It's pretty much what I suspected. They were they only gave it like 50 yards at the half. So I thought this was just going to be another Auburn versus Ball State dilemma. But Missouri's defense, I'll take it. Good use of you. Unfortunately, I had to eliminate you, but I used them pretty wisely there. So 213, and yeah, it was pretty much a blowout in SEC fantasy. So I believe now that takes the overall tally of wins to myself 4, Wade with 1. But we saw a big comeback last year. We'll see if that's still in the tank heading into week number 6 draft. But before we get into the draft, we will go through our rules. So the roster, as always, we have 1 quarterback, 1 running back, a receiver, and a defense. As always, keep in mind, all those are total yardage. And you cannot draft the same player twice in back-to-back weeks. We've been doing pretty good on that. And once you draft the defense, you can't use them again. And kudos to Wade. He sent me over our notes. And my gosh, this guy has either like OCD or just it's like very organized with what he does. So
I just searched some text. That was
yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. But we will keep up with the defenses weekly because I know we had a dilemma late in the season where I had a duplicate defense. We had to swap it out at the last second. So we will keep track of that. So let's go ahead and head to the draft. First, the quarterbacks. Ty Simpson out of Alabama against Vandy's defense and Marcel Reed of Texas A&M. Well, he was on your team, didn't really do too much. So, well, why not? Because to be honest with you, there's not too many quarterbacks to choose from this week. But talk about Ty Simpson, and, we just talked about how elite he was against this Georgia defense. How can he do that again against a Vandy defense? I know that's given up 393 yards against Utah State, but that's been playing pretty well this season.
Yeah, they're improved, but if Utah State can do that, Ty Simpson can do it. That's my philosophy, and I think he's in a good position to do so. I mean, look, Jam Miller is still coming back from an injury. This team has to rely on the passing game. Ryan Williams, I mean, he still hasn't had that breakout performance yet. It could be coming under the lights in prime time. So I'm pretty high on Alabama this week. We'll get into our picks and our preview in a bit, but I think Ty Simpson has a big Saturday night.
Yeah, I agree. I almost want Gunnar Stockton here, but I just don't want to bury Kentucky too much in this one. So you know what, Marcel Reed, you get a second opportunity with my squad this time. So it was more run game of Le'Veon Moss against Mississippi State. I expect this Texas A&M defense. I mean, Mississippi State's rush defense has been pretty solid. they'll have a tough matchup against Le'Veon Moss coming up. But I expect Marcel Reed to bounce back. It was a game that A&M didn't really have to do too much. I feel like they're going to have to up it up against a very talented Mississippi State defense. So I will take Marcel Reed. Now let's go on to the running backs. I just mentioned him, Le'Veon Moss, Texas A&M. This is the first time he's been on this show numerous times for the past couple of seasons. And I believe this is our first Florida Gators. So give it a round of applause. Florida has finally made it on to SEC Fantasy. Jaden Ball he's pretty much been the lone bright spot for what has been a putrid offense for the Gators. So talk about Le'Veon Moss's matchup coming off of a terrific game against Auburn. Can you do it again against the Dogs?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like I said, A&M can win it on the ground. They can win it through the air if needed. But I do think that they're more comfortable, when Le'Veon Moss controls the pace. I mean, if Moss can get 4 yards a carry, they're just going to keep giving it to him. I think that's kind of their philosophy. I forget the other running back's name, but he's pretty good too. So they got a nice little 1-2 punch there at A&M. But yeah, I mean, Mississippi State, they're an improved bunch, but this is a top 5 road game. I think that A&M's better on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I think Le'Veon Moss is going to kind of have his way.
I agree with you. I'm going to go Ball here just because I feel like if Florida does want to end up winning this game against Texas at home, they're coming off of the bye week. So if anything is possible coming off of the bye week, I mean, DJ Lagway hasn't really looked too good. And, like I mentioned, Jadon Ball has really been nice. Not only has he done it, on the ground, but also he's been one of those top receiving backs in the SEC this season. So there's not too many Florida players to really choose from. We have the rule where we have to pick a player from every school. So I might as well just get it over with. Maybe, Bob, I'll look on Saturday. If they'll give me like close to 100 yards, I'll take it. So Moss and Ball will be the 2 running backs. Now let's go on to the 2 pass catchers. Isaiah Satenga from Oklahoma and Colby Young of Georgia. So Satenga, he was in SEC Fantasy last year, but with Arkansas, now with Oklahoma. And you're just going after him of the MAC school of Kent State. So I don't know you want to really go into this matchup, but new quarterback, not really a new quarterback for Oklahoma. It's Michael Hawkins, who got some time last season when Jackson Arnold wasn't playing too well. So how does Oklahoma offense gel in a matchup which should be a matchup that's over by the half?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen these SEC schools do well against the MAC, mostly minus Mississippi State and Kentucky. But I don't think that's going to be the case here for Oklahoma. Even with the backup quarterback, they're going to be able to move the football. And what a better time than now to try out that passing game with Michael Hawkins and get familiar with your wide receiver here. So right now, Oklahoma's leading receiver is their tight end. If they want to keep that top 5 ranking, they're going to need to expand on that. And they're going to have to start pushing the ball down the field outside, because you can't just scramble and throw to the tight end all season. That's just not going to fly against some of these defenses they've got on the schedule coming up. So I am looking for Satenga to have a breakout game here and get close to 100 yards.
Yeah, I agree. Now is the time to experiment before you get into a brutal stretch coming up for the Sooners. I'm going to go with the wide receiver 1 for Georgia, Colby Young. He's really been consistent, putting up some numbers. Like I mentioned, he was the guy that dropped that one. So like Ryan Williams, Colby Young, could have been on here on SC Fantasy over 100 yards receiving. The matchup against Kentucky is very – this is not the time when you want to play Georgia. This is going to be a pissed-off Georgia. They're just going to run up the score on Kentucky, it feels like. So I feel very confident in Colby Young and this offense bouncing back against Kentucky defense that I mentioned last week cannot stop a soul. Wade, I know you can attest to that because – actually, no, I can attest to that because I had Kentucky, and they gave up freaking 500 yards to Eastern Michigan. So, yeah, that's all I got. That's all you need to know about Kentucky this year. Now let's move on to the defenses. Let's see if you can actually catch a break this week on defenses. You're going Georgia against that Kentucky team I just talked about, and this is why I say the Sooners defense, because they might not even give up any points or maybe even yards against Kent State. They are one of the worst teams in all the FBS. But Georgia against Kentucky, how do the Dogs respond even after a tough loss?
Yeah, I mean, this Georgia defense hasn't been as stout as years past, but Kentucky just hasn't shown me much because South Carolina's defense was kind of reeling going into this game, and they shut down Kentucky minus the first drive. So I like Georgia here. I don't think they have any issues in this one. Like you said, I think the offense pours it on, and the defense just kind of does their thing. Yeah, I was eyeing Oklahoma as well for sure, but since I got negative 150 yards last week, I didn't have the pleasure of having the first pick. But I think it was a
Yeah,
pick
whoever
well
got the
spent.
first pick this week, it was just the easiest first pick ever of Oklahoma going up against Kent State because there's not going to be too many non-conference games. So, coming up like Ole Miss will have Washington State next week. But the defense is moving forward. This is why you strategize for the first couple of weeks during non-con. So yeah, the defenses, Georgia against Kentucky, Oklahoma versus Kent State. If Oklahoma screws me, they are going to get a rant next week. But I don't expect that. I watched Kent State; they barely beat Mary Mack, and their offense is just terrible. So I expect Oklahoma to be dominant, especially coming off of a bye week. Even though it feels like you're just getting back-to-back bye weeks. But that we'll just say that for another day. Well, now let's move on to our Week 6 games and pick them. Like I mentioned, a lot of our SEC teams are on the bye, so the schedule isn't as compact as it was last week. So let's move on to our 11 a.m. game. Speaking of the game we just talked about, Kentucky at number 12, Georgia. Kentucky, started off smooth against their non-con, but once they got to the conference, things did not go so well, though. They did get Ole Miss in the first half, but outside of that, Kentucky's defense and offense just haven't really been gelling. Georgia, like I mentioned, coming off of that loss to Alabama, they are going to be very pissed off. So I think we all know how this is going to go. So, Wade, do you see Georgia bouncing back here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Kentucky really hanging in this one.
They
So give
usually
me
do,
what?
though, for some reason.
Yeah, I know it's kind of like Ole Miss with. I guess Kentucky can only play Ole Miss and Georgia, and
They
then
really
everybody else
just
thinks them. But
alternate between weeks. Kentucky just playing Georgia and Ole Miss.
Georgia won 33 games in a row at home before Saturday, and it's not going to happen twice in a row.
I agree. Georgia, I mean, they're just going to run the score. I mean, I picked Kentucky in the preseason to be the worst SEC team for a reason. The roster just isn't SEC level, to be honest with you. They lost a lot on defense. I think that the Georgia running game will get going. And the defense for you, I know I like to root against your defenses, but I think that this is finally the week that the Georgia defense really gets it done. And Chet's also going to go with the Bulldogs at home. So nice little 11 a.m. game to start the week off for the SEC. And now we move on to another conference game here, number 9, Texas at Florida. These two teams played last year, and I mean, Florida, you didn't see DJ Lagway. I think it was like they were down to like their third string quarterback at that point because Graham Mertz was out for the year. DJ Lagway was, believe, on concussion protocol. So it was, a very strange outcome there in Austin. But both teams coming off of the bye week. Florida already with 3 losses. Texas, their offense has been up and down. Arch Manning will get another test in a very hostile environment against a very talented defense because I think a lot of people want to discredit the offense, but this Florida defense has really been saving them every single game. I know they hold, LSU down. They hold Miami's offense, which is very talented, down. So do you see this one being close in the swamp, and who you got?
I mean, I could see it being close for the fact that, Florida's coming off the bye. They're going to have a little bit of juice. We haven't seen Arch Manning prove anything yet. I honestly think this is going to be kind of an ugly game.
Yeah.
But I do think Texas is the more talented team. So I'll go with Texas. But, I mean, I think this is going to be like, I don't know, kind of like the LSU and Ole Miss game, but just not good football. Just like neither team can move the ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we saw Texas Arch Manning last road appearance. That was back in week 1 against Ohio State, and he looked lost in that one. I mean, DJ Lagway at home, road, neutral side, doesn't matter where he plays. He hasn't been good either. But I do expect, Florida, this is your time to really save your season right here, because if you don't win this one, you're not making a bowl game, to be honest with you, with the games moving forward. But in the end, I believe that, this is going to be a defensive battle that comes down to the wire. And I think that I feel like this is going to be like a 21-17 type of game. It's going to be very ugly, two talented defenses, but give me Texas on the road. And Chet's also going to go with the Longhorns, so clean sweep on that one. Texas is favored by 7.5, though I could definitely see Florida making this a 4-quarter battle. Let's move on to the next game. It is our SEC Talk Game of the Week. And if you told me a couple years back, would Vanderbilt ever be in our SEC Talk Game of the Week, I wouldn't believe you. But Diego Pavia has resurrected this team. Number 16, Vanderbilt at number 10, Alabama. College Game Day will also be there. So definitely a lot of excitement, both coming from the Commodore fans and the Crimson Tide fans. Vanderbilt undefeated. Alabama coming off of a big home victory. So you could say this is a letdown spot, but I don't think that Alabama's overlooking Vanderbilt anymore, especially what happened last year when Vanderbilt put up 40 points against this Alabama defense. So it's hard to, ever bet against Vandy and Diego Pavia, but are you doing it this week against Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't beat them last year, this would totally be a good pick. Alabama has the biggest win of the season so far in college football, and Vanderbilt, a pesky bunch coming in on the road. But I like where Alabama's heading right now. And again, I think this is one where, like, kind of like we were talking about with Mississippi State and Texas A&M, like, yeah, they're a pesky bunch. They're an improved bunch, but everybody on that Alabama roster was recruited at a higher level. And I just think that shows between the trenches, and that'll be the difference in the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want this one to be close, but I feel like Alabama has just circled this Vanderbilt game since last season. They are going to run up the score on this team so badly. And the way that Vanderbilt's defense has been playing and the way that Alabama's offense is gelling is definitely not a combo. You could say that this is a letdown spot. I don't really see it. I think that Alabama rolls in this one. I say that they beat Vandy by at least 10 points in this one. Vanderbilt's been a good story, but I think the story comes to a halt on Saturday afternoon in Tuscaloosa because, whenever Nick Saban was a coach, you bring up a revenge factor, you'd be like, oh, that's rat poison. But this Alabama team, I think during practice, they're going to want to get after Diego Pavia in this offense and want to shut them down this year. And Chet's going with the doors. We said it last year that he was crazy for it. Ended up happening, so I'm going to keep quiet. We'll just see what happens there. But that's his upset pick for the week there, rolling with the doors. Now let's move on to the next game, a game we'll talk about for just say one word and get out. Kent State at number 5, Oklahoma. So, Wade, what's your one word?
Sooners.
All right. I'm going to go blowout. So let's go all Sooners there. Yeah, I mean, why the hell are you playing Kent State like this? I see, this is why, please, next season, I'm so ready for the 9-game conference schedule. We won't have to worry about a team like Kent State. Whenever it's October, people. It's October, you're playing Kent State. Like, come on. All right, let's move on here. Mississippi State at number 6, Texas A&M. This rivalry has definitely been, one of the crazier ones. It feels like every single year it's going down to the wire, no matter if it's in Starkville or if it's in College Station. But Mississippi State coming off of loss in overtime against Tennessee. Texas A&M coming here in the top 6, undefeated. Things are looking well. Do you have the Aggies continuing your undefeated season, or do you have Mississippi State making a statement on the road here?
I mean, look, Texas A&M does struggle offensively. If Blake Shapen can come in there and command the offense, you can make an argument that Mississippi State could outpace Texas A&M, but I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think Le'Veon Moss is going to get 20 to 30 carries, and I think he's going to do really well. And I don't think A&M's going to dominate this game. I think it's going to be kind of like a 27-17 type game.
Yeah, I expect this one to be like middle 20s, maybe gets into the low 30s here. I don't expect just like both defenses to be shut down for 4 quarters. This one is going to be a 4-quarter battle, though it always is. It feels like between these two teams. I have been rolling Mississippi State, but I think that it ends here for them. I think that Texas A&M They're just too good of a football team the way that they're playing right now. I mean, the defense we said like in the first couple of weeks, maybe it was just like Auburn's offense was just bad or not. We will definitely see because this Mississippi State rushing attack has definitely got it going, with Booth and Bothwell. And then their receivers, they got some speed on the perimeter. So how is Texas A&M secondary is going to fare against that? But I am going to go Texas A&M. This was in Starkville. I'll probably go Mississippi State, but I will give it to the home crowd, especially at night. It's a blackout. We know what happened last year when Texas A&M did the blackout. So give me the Aggies. And Chet's also going with the Aggies, so no disagreements here. And that is all of our games. Yep, that was pretty quickly there. Hopefully next week
Very quick.
we'll have some better games for us, but we will definitely see how the SEC shakes up this week heading into week number 7. So let's get into some hot topics. Well, we had the question of who's going to get fired first in the SEC. And, well, that answer only took about a week as Arkansas, after getting obliterated and letting Jeremiah Love, which I said, how are they going to stop them? That's why I picked Notre Dame. And Arkansas's defense couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't even stop the punter if they tried. But Arkansas, it has finally come that they fired their head coach in Sam Pittman. And the interim coach is a guy that they're definitely quite familiar with, Bob Petrino. He's already fired like pretty much the majority of the defensive staff, like the DC's gone, and also all the support staff pretty much. So with Sam Pittman out the door, I know it's early in this whole coaching carousel, but who's a guy, maybe like in the Power 4, Group of 5 that could possibly take over the Hogs coming up?
I don't think the obvious ones like Gus Malzahn, like I don't think that's the job for him anymore. I mean, we saw him leave UCF to be an offensive coordinator at Florida State.
Right.
So I don't think he wants to be the head guy anymore. Kind of looking down at the next level down. You got well, let's actually say the Power 4 level. I mean, I think if they could swing for the fences, Rhett Lashley at SMU, he went to Arkansas. If they could convince him to come from SMU, then sure. But something tells me SMU is going to pony up a lot of money.
Yeah. Hey, I see what you did there. Pony up.
Yeah. So I don't know if I see that working. I think you could look down at the American if you get on this early. Now, keep in mind that Florida could open up. Virginia Tech's already open. These are all maybe better jobs. Auburn potentially, yeah. So, I don't know if John Summerall would pick Arkansas over any of those other ones.
I don't know. I feel like he would wait. Nothing against Arkansas, but if Florida and Auburn open up, I feel like he would prefer those.
I agree, but also I think Auburn would be a slam dunk place for him to go. But I think it's going to be hard for another smaller coach to want to go to Florida after what happened in Napier.
Yeah. I feel like Florida this time is not going to go to the G5 level. They're going to go big name hunting. And Arkansas, too. I mean, they got Tyson and Walmart money, so, they could throw the bag at it, whoever. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say is it's actually a pretty good job because it's in a favorable part of the country. Yeah. The expectations are moderate. They just want somebody that can win some games. I mean, they're not looking to win a national championship yet. And they got a lot of NIL money and backing. So honestly, it might be a better job than Florida right now. That being said, if they want to get a guy with some SEC experience coming from the lower level, Dan Mullen could be the dude.
That's who I was thinking. That's who I was going to say. He's at UNLV right now. He would dart to take the Arkansas job right now.
Yeah, I think it would be a good fit, and I think the pieces are there. So I'm curious to see how that one shakes out. I actually think it's a better job right now than Virginia Tech or Florida. Yeah. Auburn, though, I think would be hard to compete with.
I mean, hell, you saw on the basketball side, Arkansas's boosters was able to get a lot of money and get Calipari away from Arkansas, not from Arkansas, Kentucky to Arkansas. So don't doubt the boosters. They got the money up there in Arkansas, so they can get, not really whoever, but, could Jimbo Fisher come back into coaching and take over Arkansas? Who knows? I think that a lot of
I see him more as a fit maybe at Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Florida would go that route. Florida. If you're Florida's AD, your job's on the line with this next hire. It feels like the way that past couple of fires, the way that the Dan Mullen situation went down. But we got a lot of time about it. It's Bob Petrino is going to have, even Petrino is going to get a little trial here. The interim coach, if he does well over these, the next couple of weeks into the end of the season, maybe Petrino could get the job, but I would doubt it, but we will see moving forward. Well, now let's continue on with the old all of our hot topics are former SEC West foes there, but let's move on here to our concern level surrounding the LSU offense because we pushed it away for the first couple of weeks of the season. It was a very talented Clemson and Florida defense, and then you only put up like 20 something points against Louisiana Tech defense, like I mentioned, played the 3-3-5. Go on the road to Ole Miss and struggle once again. Garrett Nussmeier just doesn't look healthy whatsoever. You look at the tape from last season, he was, slinging the football all over the field. Rushing game continues to be a struggle. It feels like under the Brian Kelly era, LSU's rushing game has been lacking. You could say 2023, but Jaden Daniels' rushing attack, really covered up the issues there. The rushing game outside of Jaden Daniels wasn't that good because you saw Jaden in that year by far be the leading rusher in that offense. So what is your concern level for this LSU offense as they head into the bye week? And, can they, over the bye week, get things fixed quickly? Because, look at the schedule coming forward. You have South Carolina at home, Vanderbilt on the road, Texas A&M at home, and then you'll have the bye week before the Bama game. So what are some changes and what are your concern level of this LSU offense?
Yeah, I guess I'm just concerned with the lack of the run game. I thought it would show up against Ole Miss, and it didn't. And then, like I said, the receivers haven't really played to the level that we thought they would either. Right now, I don't think there's anything about this offense that says definitively that they're going to move the ball on Vanderbilt, Alabama, Texas A&M. Maybe they'll have success against South Carolina, Arkansas, Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I know with Dylan Stewart on the edge, you never know with that defensive front. You saw last year's game; they couldn't do anything that first half.
Yeah, they gave him a lot of trouble. You got Oklahoma at the end of the year too. I think we keep forgetting about that game. So yeah, I don't think the wheels are falling off of the wagon here for LSU, but I think this team's a lot closer to being 9-3 again than they are 11-1 at this moment. And I think that the defense can't win every game for you because they're facing some good offenses down the stretch. Alabama's offense looks good. Oklahoma's going to have Mateer back for that game, so they're going to have to get the 30 points.
Yeah, they're going to have to score some points, moving forward in this one. The defense won't be able to save them every time. You saw it on Saturday. The defense did all that they could. They only let up 24 points against a very explosive Ole Miss team and only put up 19 is definitely concerning moving forward. Garrett Nussmeier, is he dealing with an injury or not? I guess we'll never know because the head coach doesn't want to tell us at this point. But I think it's more, play call at this point. I think that, Joe Sloan isn't really made to be an offense coordinator for a team like this. And you got to open up the run game. When you see a defense, only rush 3, at some point you got to open up the running game and let your guys, make some work of it because it can't all be on Nussmeier, especially if he's hurt. Even if he's hurt, put in Michael Van Buren. He's had some SEC experience. Against, whenever Mississippi State's offense, was at the bottom of the SEC. So, if he's really hurt, we'll see coming off of the bye week. BK has said, over the weekly press conferences that, he just needs to be shut down for a week. So, we'll see if after the bye week, if it's, magically improved or not. But if it hasn't, then there's definitely going to be more concern, especially if the offense struggles once again at home, especially against South Carolina. All right, let's go on to the next team. Did Ole Miss prove they are a legitimate college football playoff contender? Because we were very high on them. They had a very talented roster. Lane Kiffin went to the transfer portal, spent a lot of money. It feels like this, time, they still have a very talented roster. But so far, they are, outperforming the 2024 team that we thought that was easily going to make the college football playoff. So what are your overall takeaways on Ole Miss so far? And can they win the SEC and make it to the playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think this team, you lost some key names from last year's team, notably Jackson Dart
Yeah.
and Trey Harris, but I think this says a lot about the system Lane Kiffin has more than anything. And I'm not saying that Trinidad Chambliss is going to be an NFL quarterback or have the personal success that Dart's going to have, but I think he can run the system quite well. And I think that they've upgraded at running back this year. I think that Quan Lacey looks fantastic. If it wasn't for Ahmad Hardy, we would be talking about him a lot more as the best running back. Oh, and guess where he came from? Missouri. So can you imagine that those two could have been on the same team? I mean, Missouri probably wouldn't have brought in Hardy if Lacey didn't leave. But yeah, I think that the system is looking really, really good. And I think defensively, they're a lot better than we thought. Or maybe that's just LSU looking bad. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, I know that Austin Simmons was a nice quarterback, but how can you go back to Austin Simmons at this point? The way your offense has really been rolling. I mean, Chambliss gives you that dual threat capability. That defenses at times, don't really know what to do against the run, and you pair that, with Quan Lacey, the receivers, Harrison Wallace. You got him from Penn State. And then, your defense, is starting to gel. They shut down a very talented Tulane offense, just shut down LSU. And you have Washington State, who's not really a high-powered offense. You see the name of Washington State, you might think that they score a lot of points, but they're not a very good football team. So you do have some winnable games moving forward. So yeah, I think that Ole Miss could definitely be that playoff discussion, and I think that they could definitely be a dark horse to win the SEC as well, because it's the same conference schedule as we were talking about last year. We say that Missouri and Ole Miss have the more manageable games. You do have to go on the road to Georgia. You avoid, the Alabamas, and you don't have to play Texas this season. But speaking of the conference schedules, the SEC did announce their conference schedules from the 2026 to the 2029 season. So we got all that. Very exciting news for that. I know Wade has definitely been a big proponent of all of this moving forward. So what we're going to do here over the next couple of minutes here, Wade, you brought up your own interpretation of how you would have done the permanent opponents for each of our 16 league members. So talk about your process, how you did this, and then we'll get into some discussion. We'll go back and forth on this.
Yeah. Tyler, you want to show our viewers this lovely graphic I put together?
Yep. So let me go ahead and put it on for you. All right. Go for it. I'll give you the floor.
We can all see it?
Yep, we're good.
So, the rainbow here, if you can follow my logic. I listed all the teams in alphabetical order on the left-hand side here and assigned them a color. And then to the right, I set there are 3 permanent opponents. These are who I think that everybody should play every year. I get that some of them aren't perfect. I actually think this was more fine-tuned before the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. Yep. It just kind of added more clutter to the mix. But we were able to preserve a lot of the historic rivalries as well as some of the modern fun games that we've had the last few years. And then, I mean, above all, I tried to emphasize regional rivalries and border wars and all that kind of stuff. So we're not going to go through all the teams, but the big changes from what we saw in the official release is, I kept that LSU Alabama game. I know you're a fan of that. And you can see that we dumped the LSU Texas A&M game and replaced it with a matchup with Oklahoma and Mississippi State. Do you know if Texas A&M plays either of them?
I don't think that they play Mississippi State. Yeah. I can't honestly remember. I believe they do play Texas. I think they either play Missouri.
I know they play Missouri.
They play Missouri, Texas. I think they don't play Arkansas. That rivalry's
I
gone.
think it is Oklahoma.
I think it might. Yeah, I think it might be either Oklahoma or Mississippi. I don't know. It's a lot of teams to memorize.
Yeah, I was trying to work Arkansas in there for them, but the SEC does seem to like the Missouri and Arkansas series, so that's something that you could switch in there, and then you would get all of your old Southwest Conference games with Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So that's something to consider, but I gave them the Adidas Bowl for now.
There you go.
And then South Carolina, I switched them up a little bit too. I gave them Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. I think that Kentucky game's usually pretty good. It wasn't this year, but I thought getting the Gamecocks their rivalries with the border state with Georgia back. I mean, it's weird not seeing those teams play every year right now. And then they haven't played Florida in a couple of years because of the realignment either. So getting those teams back on the schedule. Alabama's pretty self-explanatory to me. Ole Miss was a tricky one to determine their third opponent, but I went with Vanderbilt because it was drivable, somewhat close. Anyways, just food for thought. My little spin on it. Do you like this lineup, Tyler, for LSU, or would you prefer to play Texas A&M?
I definitely prefer this one. I mean, LSU. I mean, if you were to get just rid of Alabama, I would have put Florida in this instance. I mean, the LSU Florida rivalry. I mean, the past couple of years, it feels like outside. I mean, that LSU Alabama game, to be honest with you, outside a couple of years, has been dominated by Alabama. So, am I like sad to see it like go off of like the permanent opponents? Not really, because the way that it's structured, I mean, you're going to play them like every 2 years. It feels like it's going to be a home and away. So it's not like the game itself is going away. I mean, Ole Miss, I mean, LSU, you got to put that on there. I mean, you could take away Arkansas. I mean, it's just playing for the battle for the Golden Boot. So if you're going to take away a team outside of Texas A&M, I would have said Arkansas and just swapped it with either like the Alabama or Florida. But yeah, I feel like the SEC has just been trying to force this LSU Texas A&M rivalry ever since A&M. I mean, I feel like they just based it on that 7 overtime game. But yeah, I think outside of this, I think that I like Tennessee the way that you did it better than they had, because I don't understand why they put Kentucky. I get it for basketball purposes, but I don't really care about Tennessee and Kentucky on the football field. I don't know why they didn't keep Florida and Tennessee. I guess because Florida already has like Georgia and South Carolina. I guess for just for purposes of how they did this, they wanted to be as even as possible, because how you did Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU.
That's a lot tougher than Missouri.
Yeah, you could say Vanderbilt, for instance, like they have Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ole Miss. But yeah, I think outside of that, I think that the way that you did it and how they did it, I mean, it's fair. I mean, you're not going to please everybody, and you're not going to have like discrepancies that you've seen of like Georgia, that like last year, for instance, like where like they're not conference, they didn't play anybody once they got to the conference. They had like 1 or 2 big games. Now everybody in this conference is going to be, having a brutal schedule the rest of the conference schedule, and they're going to have to play an additional Power 4, which I definitely like that structure moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to remember about this is, yeah, we can debate on who each of these teams' 3 rivals are, who has the easier of the 3, but the main benefit of this and the main point of this is that we're going to get to see everybody play everybody within a 2-year period. So you're balancing the schedule out. I mean, everybody's going to play each other outside of these 3 games. And to me, that's what this league's been missing. I mean, since Texas A&M joined the conference in 2012, they haven't hosted Georgia just because of how all this alignment's worked out and stuff. I mean, it's been, coming up on 13 years of them being in the conference. There's only 16 teams. Like, why hasn't that happened?
Yeah.
So when we talk about balancing it out, it's not about who the 3 protected opponents are. It's about playing everybody in your conference within a 2-year period. And I think that's what is exciting to me.
Yeah, I don't know if you looked at Auburn's schedule next year. It is absolutely brutal, especially like the road games next year. I believe
And
I
so with
looked.
the new coach.
They have to go to like 2 Alabama, 2 Georgia, 2 LSU, 2 Texas A&M. They're going to have a whale of a time. Plus, they have to get a Power 4 in there. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. To starting in 2026, that'll be getting underway. I mean, that's just the norm of college football. You know, the Big Ten already has 9 games. The ACC this coming season will also have 9 games. The Big 12 feels like they were the first conferences once they expanded this past couple of seasons. So, I mean, for all this expansion, you know damn well the college football playoff is just a matter of time that they expand from 12 to 16 or maybe even beyond that. That's just the way that college football feels like that's going to be operating. The way that these conferences are shaping things up and just expanding their conference schedules to 9 games. So, of course, that is for the future. For now, we will keep track of this whenever it gets to the time, but definitely like this experiment that you did just to, you know, from your perspective and how the committee, whoever the committee was behind this, of how they were able to decide, what schools get, to save their rivalries as well. And also, what schools are going to be playing what. So that is all for SEC Talk. Don't see any comments both on YouTube and Facebook, but we always appreciate all of our little viewers here on SEC Talk. And we will be back next either Sunday or Monday. We kind of just base this on how good of the Sunday night game is. And, boy, I was happy we skipped last week because to see a 40-40 tie, I have never seen in my life. That was a scoregami for sure.
It was a scoregami.
But I appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. We'll be back both recapping week number 6, so looking forward to week 7 as we are closing the book on September and moving into October. So we're pretty much in the heat of the college football season and as well as the conference schedule. So the football is going to definitely be very critical over these next couple of weeks leading up into October and November. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time. So for SEC Talk, so long for now.